We would be honoured if you would join us.
Hello, I'm John Moore and welcome to the first of our Film Stories monthly reviews. Pretty shortly I'm going to be joined on the call by Simon Brew, our editor, and Ryan Lambie, the editor of filmstories.co.uk, and James Harvey, one of our contributors. We're all going to discuss a film and a news story that we found interesting over the previous month. It's dead simple. The only rule really is be nice to each other. Let's get on with it.
Shall I kick off with the first film choice?
Go on then.
Yeah, go on then. Right, I want to talk about Wolves because this month I've decided that I'm going on vibes alone and I'm not going to worry about anything actually make any sense or being in any way worthy. I'm just going to go 100% on vibes, and that's why I think that it's worth talking about George Clooney and Brad Pitt sort of vibing their way through a film that only sort of marginally makes sense, but goes a long way to making up for that with just having a generally very good atmosphere and some quite funny little set pieces and plenty of space for those two to do what they kind of do in the Oceans movies. And yeah, Ryan and I have had quite an extended conversation about this over time, because you had a very Simon's off somewhere.
Simon's gone.
Already. You talk.
Are you going to go to the toilet, Simon?
No.
Please don't.
Is it a sequel to that?
No.
It's
Anything? Is it a multiple of that?
I like that it's still in shrink wrap.
It's still in shrink wrap. That's the shrink wrap pile. I saw it at the cinema. Is what Ryan? You'll have seen both. Is Wolf better than Wolves?
No.
Oh, okay.
It really?
Actually, sorry, no, the wrong way around. Sorry, wrong way around.
Wolf is better than
wrong.
Wolves.
Wolf is better than Wolves.
It's got a great score. Wolf has. Ennio Morricone, I think.
Yes, I mean that's had some serious money thrown at it at the time, didn't it, Wolf?
I'll tell you the thing that put me off Wolves.
Go on.
It's a terribly shallow approach to this, but the boss advert was awful. Did you see it? That they put it on the side of like Birmingham and London buses with just the most dreadful font. And I'm not massively snobbish about this, but it just looked terrible. It looked like it'd been slapped together just like on Canva or something like that. Well, there's some good stuff on Canva. So was it any good?
I enjoyed it. I thought
That's a
it was
no,
great, but
it's
I'm
no
going
good.
100%. Like I said, I'm going 100% on vibes and enjoying watching Clooney and Pitt be Clooney and Pitt.
What do you mean by 100% on vibes when you're watching a film? Is that a substance?
No, it's the idea that the overall sort of atmosphere created by that film, it overrides any need to actually for it to make any sense or it to be in any way worthy.
So it can be rubbish as long as it's got vibes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's what people said about Saltburn. That's a vibe film, Simon.
Okay.
That's what said about that. I'll be honest.
Michael Mann's Miami Vice.
Yeah.
So never mind that the film.
Movie.
Yeah, okay.
I convinced myself that I had seen Wolves, but it turns out I haven't, and I saw the Instigators instead, which came out I think around the same time, also on Apple TV Plus, also starring one or more of the people from the Oceans franchise, and seemed very similar and was also sort of fine.
Why isn't it called Wolves?
It's never explained.
Isn't it?
That's not right, is it?
Well, because it's based on the fixer guy from Pulp Fiction, isn't it? Who's called someone Wolf. And so it's the plural of wolf, which would be wolves.
Yeah.
So it looks wrong.
Which is kind of cheeky because they don't acknowledge Quentin Tarantino or Pulp Fiction.
What? They
or
just
in the film itself. They just rip it off.
Well, so we can just rob a character from someone else's film and make a film about it.
Well, not exactly, but that's clearly what they're alluding to.
Yeah, Winston
because
Wolfe,
that's their job.
the Keitel character from
their job is.
They could have got the Keitel character from Bad Lieutenant then and done a George Clooney Brad Pitt film about that.
But wolf is Wolf not the catch-all term for that area of expertise? As in, he
Well,
is a
I'm
wolf.
not part of the criminal underworld, so I don't know.
Well, let me look up what a wolf is.
Well, Harvey Keitel did do a series of adverts for, I think it was Direct Line, where he's
No.
playing the same character.
Yes,
So
he
I guess
absolutely did.
maybe the wolf thing is in the public domain now. I'm pretty sure it was Tarantino was the first one that did it, and then
I thought
it's just
it
sort of
was.
stuck. But I could be wrong.
Because he's like the cleaner was the cleaner. The idea of a cleaner was quite popular in the 90s. You know, with
Well, it's yuppies, isn't it?
what's that?
Well, yuppies have cleaners. Is that what you mean? Are we
No.
on to domestic chores?
I mean,
Okay.
sort of Nikita, La Femme Nikita.
I've got a
and
bit
the
of.
idea of somebody
I've got
turns
some
up with a
all-purpose
big
cleaner there.
with a big vat of acid, and
Okay.
comes and sorts out any dead bodies that you may have lying around, and that's basically their trade in wolves. They turn up and fix situations in much the same way that Harvey Keitel does in Pulp Fiction.
So they're making another one, aren't they?
They are making.
So
another
are they
one.
going to call that Wolves?
Wolfses. Can we do my conspiracy theory?
Yes.
About
Let's do
So-
it, Ryan. Go in there. Go in,
my
both
conspiracy
feet.
theory is, so John Watts obviously had scored a big hit with Spider-Man's.
The director of Wolves, right?
Yeah.
Yes, who is the
Yeah.
director of Wolves.
Gotcha.
Spider-Man.
He went in with this. He's got this package together with two big Hollywood stars and this concept that they're both these rival cleaners. And then the studio like it so much they say, we're going to cut the script in half and we're going to make it 2 films. So this film, which we're talking about currently, is half a story, and it just ends at what would normally be the midpoint in a thriller, because there are threads dangling all over the place that it sets up and doesn't pay off. There's the woman on the end of the phone, the proprietor of the hotel where all this takes, the initial cleaning situation takes place. It starts off, there's a body on the floor in a hotel room. There's what is she? She's a high-ranking politician or senator
attorney.
or something, isn't she? Or
Yes.
attorney or something.
Yes, he's an attorney, I
She-
think.
she's
Amy
worried about her.
Ryan.
She's worried about her reputation because there's a dead body on a room. So she hires a cleaner to come in, and then Brad Pitt's other cleaner comes in. So all this is set up, and then so Brad Pitt's cleaner, I'm not explaining this very well, comes in and says, "Oh yeah, the proprietor of the hotel hired me. She's heard about this because she's got cameras everywhere, so I've got to clean it up." So the rest of the film is them bickering over how they clean up the mess afterwards. But the person on the phone who you never see, who owns the hotel, is Frances McDormand. So that's a big name to get in for a voice cameo, and it's never explained who she is or why. You see the senator / politician / whatever she is, I can't remember now, on a poster later on, sort of towards the end of the film, and she's never referred to again. And that's it. There isn't really any. There's no villain in it.
No.
Not from beginning to. I think there's one guy in a nightclub that at one stage who's they sort of have some previous connection with. They don't want him to know that they know each other all of a sudden, and that's kind of it. It's So that's my conspiracy theory is that all the payoff from this film will be in the second film. Originally, it was written as one film.
I don't necessarily think you're wrong.
What would the third one be called?
Wolf Sisters.
Wolf 3.
Sooner or later they go to an Sooner or later they go to an origin story as well, don't they? You know, so that Cubs.
Cubs.
Cubs is.
Okay. Well, I will rush to watch that off your dual recommendations.
Do you watch
Has it
this
got-
good half a film?
Has it got the wolves from Pop Star Never Stop Never Stopping in it? They're the best wolves on in aren't they?
No, the Wolves are grey.
What about the
It's a
grey?
fantastic film.
Yeah, that's a review I got. I was a little bit down on that. What I criticised it for at the time is what I like it for now.
I saw it on a plane first time. Can you imagine
It's
how
got a
harrowing
plane
that
crash
was?
in it.
It's not watching it in sense.
4DX.
It's like, what's it like watching Society of the Snow on a plane? It's like ill-advised plane movies.
Oh my god.
Perfect. Okay, so 4 stars. That's what I'm taking from that.
Immaculate vibes, dodgy in every other way. I'm sticking with this vibes idea.
It has vibes. It wants to be a bloody Shane Black film, but there's no conflict in it. They kind of bicker over who does what. They kind of assign roles to each other all the time. Well, I'm not moving the body, you move
just
the body.
work.
Yeah, exactly. There's more conflict in this conversation we're having now than in the entirety of Wolves.
There's more villains as well.
There's more villains. And I mean, Shane Black, at least, if you watch something like The Nice Guys, he understands that to create an amusing comedy between two big actors, you create conflict. They have differences. One's tough, one's not. One's smart, one's less smart. There's even a character in this film, that the kid, I'm forgetting who plays him, but he's basically
Abrams.
He turns around to him and says, "You're both the same character. You dress the same. You look the same. You basically are the same." It's like, yes, that's exactly the problem. It's like the screenwriter's subconscious was trying to tell him something. He's so close to getting it. Anyway, sorry.
Who wants to weigh in next then? Now I've been my first choice has been completely eviscerated by Ryan.
No, it's really good. It's a good half of film.
Simon, what are you going to talk about?
Well, the film that I didn't see in October that I really wanted to was Horizon: an American Saga Chapter 2, which is absolutely missing in action. So I'm getting no vibes from it or anything whatsoever, because it's finished, it's screened, but I just can't see it absolutely anywhere. Short of a plane ticket to Venice and gate crashing someone's party. And when Horizon: an American Saga, do I have to do that every time? An American Saga Chapter 1, let's just say, didn't do Deadpool and Wolverine numbers at the box office, and they pulled the release of the second Horizon film from writer-director star Kevin Costner. The idea was that it would be out before the end of the year. That was what they were talking about. They're just going to leave a few months between releases as opposed to a few weeks, as per the original plan. And it's gone. It's disappeared. And I checked the schedules just before I came on here today. It's still gone. I write to Warner Brothers on a weekly basis and get a standard rejection letter, which is fairly common throughout my life. But we've had also my letters in the first place. But I mean, this comes hot on the heel of hot on the heels as well of Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. That's it. I can never say it out loud. And I fear that this brief instance of people funding their passion projects for large amounts of money is juddering to a halt even before it's properly begun. And selfishly, I'm only halfway through. Well, I'm not even that. I'm a quarter of the way through a 4-film Western saga that I really want to see. They've not made the last 2 parts, and they've not even shown me the second part. So I've got nothing concrete to tell you about the film other than I want to see it. And I've noticed a feature in YouTube where it automatically transcribes what people talk about and then puts them in as keywords and stuff like that. So I figure if I keep saying Horizon often enough and release date of Horizon Chapter 2, then sooner or later the auto transcript will meet the algorithm, will meet some AI mothership, and some light will go off in the office of Warner Brothers, and finally they will put Chapter 2 of Horizon with Kevin Costner, who wrote and directed as well, out there, hashtag.
Or you'll get the BBC Science Programme.
You know what? That was all right though, wasn't it? Yeah. But the BBC Science Programme was not, crucially, an American Saga, which Horizon is.
It is an American Saga.
It is an American Saga.
It's a saga in more ways than one at the moment. Is it? Are we ever going to see it? Are we ever going to see all?
He's filmed. The idea is at the end of each film, he was going to film show us a trailer of what's coming next. So, like the end of Back to the Future 2, leading into Back to the Future 3, that kind of trick. The problem at the end of Chapter 1 is he didn't tell us we were in the trailer. And I like Chapter 1, but I can see the problems with it. But you sit through 3 hours, which I gleefully did. It's like porn to me. And you get to the end of this really slow-moving, diligently put together 3 hours, and all of a sudden you get 2 minutes of really fast-cut action with like characters you've not seen or anything like that. At no point does it tell you you're now in the trailer for the next film. It's just like, it's suddenly as if he's like, his foot slipped and he hit the accelerator and just went. And so he's filmed the bit of chapter 3 that goes at the end of chapter 2, but no one's giving him the money, as I understand it, at the moment to make chapter 3 and chapter 4. So now he's going off to make another film in the interim, presumably to help make money to make chapter 3 at the very least and get that done. I would be surprised if we see the saga completed, but I just want to watch the second one at the moment. Hashtag.
So what are we getting then? Bodyguards? Or
Bodyguards? Well, at least it sounds better than wolves, doesn't it? No, it's. I mean, I'm going. I go spoiler light on Costa stuff, so I don't. I mean, it's too much of a treat for me to spoil it in advance. He's shooting another film that starts production in January of next year. I know he's got another one potentially on the go as well, but I just want him to make Horizon. Then he can go back to Yellowstone if he wants. I don't mind, but Horizon.
To play devil's advocate, Simon, wasn't the idea of releasing the first 2 parts a few weeks apart from each other very strange and a bit silly in the first place?
Yes.
Well,
so would that have been 6 hours of westernage within a few days
of Kevin Costner westernage? Yeah.
But if it was a regular, if it was a Back to the Future and a Back to the Future Part 2, you'd be waiting a year to see Horizon, an American Saga, colon, dash,
it wasn't
part
that long
2
between
hashtag.
part. There was it that long? I thought it was only about 7 months between Back to the Future 2 and 3, just on a technicality.
Oh well, I wasn't born, but I suppose like
the ultimate put down, isn't it? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I wasn't even born back then, Simon.
While you were queuing outside the Futurist in Birmingham, I wasn't even embryonic. Great.
Yep. But surely, that still gives you. I mean, when did Horizon come out? Was it June, May, August, July?
Yeah.
Of
end of June, start of July. Yeah.
So you've still got, another 3 months.
I mean, it's coming from Warner Brothers, and looking at the Warner Brothers schedule between now and the end of the year, there's Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, and Juror number 2, are going out on exactly the same day. And then there's nothing. There's no other release at the moment that I can see on the calendar. Of course, it may change, but I'm not expecting a Christmas release for this. It'd be a treat, wouldn't it? Could have an office outing.
Would he?
Imagine
if
that.
He wanted to do 8 hours of Western,
12.
Should he not have just? Could he have not have got Apple or somebody just to like pay for it and done it
on a cinema screen? See, I've not got to Megalopolis yet, and I really should. But even in its worst state, I admire the fact that a man of advancing years so much wanted to make a film that he scraped together the money by selling his vineyard. I mean, it just takes the slight poverty edge off it a little bit, doesn't it? But even so, he didn't have to do that. I kind of admire the people who put their money where their mouth is.
I maintain that Francis Ford Coppola didn't need to sell his vineyard, though, because if he'd done a deal with Amazon to do a Clarkson's Farm style behind the scenes of Francis Ford Coppola's vineyard, he could have made budget of Megalopolis 4 times over from that, I'm sure.
Why doesn't he go the whole hog and go on, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here?
He could.
He wants to make a film and put it on a cinema. I believe you. He wants to make a film and put it on a cinema screen. And the people who are fighting for that, I'm not knocking. Why should he make a deal with a streaming company? No. Why? Well, I mean, what's the only streaming company now that absolutely commits to a full cinema release? It's Amazon, isn't it? That's about it. And even then, it's in most cases, not all. Or, well, it's not even most anymore either, is it? Apple won't put it out. I mean, look what they did to Poor Wolves. I mean, imagine you could have had your disappointment in your vibes in your local Odeon instead of on your sofa.
It's the way things get made these days, though, isn't it? If you want to do 8 hours of something, that's how you get it made these days.
But he didn't. They found a different way to get it made. And ideally, it would have worked and others would have followed the path. But no, I mean, look at Longlegs this year, right? That upends the way traditionally you're supposed to put out a film in the summer. Not the fact that it was made for 10 million, because we've seen resourceful independent filmmakers put films out for 10 million time and time again. What Longlegs showed is a different way, in that you do a digital-only marketing campaign. You actually put the same level of thought and cleverness into it. The big story of this year that I think is partly being missed is the promotional campaign for Longlegs, a film that crossed 100 million at the global box office, cost less than $10 million. And that's the kind of game changer, isn't it? That didn't go near a streamer. That showed with intuition, with a bit of savviness, a little bit of luck as well. But you can put a relatively modest, in the scheme of cinema, money out there and get a successful cinema release.
That's horror, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not.
Yeah, genre helps, and Terrify is obviously the other example of that. But even so,
it's also not aimed at the demographic that is going to watch 8 hours of Western.
No.
So it's easier to. If my point is, for a Costner audience,
12 hours.
For a Costner, apologies, for a Costner audience and 12 hours of Western, it seems massive amount of hubris to put it to say, oh yeah, I'm going to put it out in the cinema, and that's how it's going to be.
It sounds an awful lot like a TV series, doesn't it?
It does.
It sounds like the sort of thing that should be like Lonesome Dove or something.
It just sounds like I can do this because I am who I am.
Which is true. He can do it because of it. Same could
Well,
Coppola.
I think it's actually been proved that he
Kevin
can't.
Smith can put out the 4:30 movie because of who he is.
No, but he could. Costner could probably carry a Western.
Yes.
Yeah, but not 8 hours of not 12 hours of
12.
Western. Not 12 hours of 4-part Western. It just sort of smacks of like. It does smack of a bit of hubris, unfortunately. I think even by Megalopolis standards, yeah, I can't. It doesn't in any way seem like a plan that was destined to succeed. Unfortunately, Simon's frozen and doesn't agree with me.
Anyway, so
like
Simon's
Megalopolis
contribution
for what it's worth.
is a film he's not seen.
Yeah,
He's wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
So what are you talking about, James?
Ooh, well, I'm going to change the tone a lot with a Black Box Diaries, which is a very good documentary that was just at the London Film Festival and is coming to cinemas at time of recording in 3 days' time.
But crucially, not the time of editing.
Not time of editing. It will be in cinemas within 3 days of you.
It will be on DVD
somewhere. It'll be available in Blockbuster Video right now.
You imply that I'm actually going to edit this, Simon.
It's just going straight out. We're live, aren't we?
Yeah, maybe.
Imagine.
Imagine.
You could be.
Anyway, so Black Box Diaries. It is based on the 2017 memoir from Shiori Ito called Black Box. And basically, she was a young journalist in her 20s in Japan. And she went asking for some career advice from Noriyuki Yamaguchi, who is the Washington bureau chief of the Tokyo Broadcasting System. Very important journalist, very big, very famous. When Shinzo Abe got assassinated a few years later, he was the one who broke the news. Very big deal. Essentially, she was assaulted. She reported it a year later, and none of the police wanted anything to do with it. She got constantly sort of vilified in the media. She brought out her memoir, battled through the courts, did a lot of journalism goodness, and sort of overturned some of the sexual assault legislation in Japan, which was over 100 years old at the time, I think. So it's sort of the how the Me Too movement almost manifested itself in Japan, and it's a really... She's directed the documentary herself, which is sort of mind-blowing to me. There's so many points in the film when there's pictures of the man who assaulted her is in a car driving away, and she's running after the car, chasing it down the street. And then she goes to a taxi driver who took them to the hotel and could tell that she was in trouble and didn't do anything. She records their conversation just on her phone, and you sort of hear exactly what he's got to say for himself from the horse's mouth. And through the whole thing, she's so sort of dispassionate in such a sort of inspiring way almost. It's one of those documentaries where you watch it and you have no idea how someone did it, not just because it's technically a lot of very difficult, very hard journalism, but just the emotional toll that living through all of that and recording all of it and being so coherent and being sort of learning how to be a media performer as well, because this is all going on at the same time as a trial, and everything like that. And it's just a really fascinating documentary. I mean, I'm a bit of a sucker for any sort of journalism type movies. I mean, sort of from the fictional side of things, stuff like All the President's Men and Spotlight, The Post, all that kind of thing. And you do get a certain amount of that just by watching her do the hard graft of tracking people down, interviewing people, chasing them down the street with a microphone, that sort of thing. And then it's combined with this sort of sucker punch of a story that makes it, I don't know, it's one of the best documentaries I've seen in a very long time, and one of my probably favorite films of the year. So yeah, that's changed the tone quite a lot from Kevin Costner, hasn't it?
That's a very eloquent recommendation.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. I can keep my job, can I?
The interesting thing about this is that, considering she's been sued, does she go into the details of the fact that she was sued for defamation and she's basically been hounded in the courts by at various times for her to then go, and how does she address what that's going to mean for her personally going forward? Like, she could have made this as a drama and possibly sidestepped a lot of issues that she's going to have by basically just keep going at it as a documentary, because presumably she's relitigating a lot of the stuff that's got her into trouble in the courts before. Is that sort of handled as part of the doc?
So it's, I think in a part of the doc, a lot of it is to do with the legal battle. So I think I can't remember exactly the year that it goes up to, but I mean, it's not really a spoil to say that a big court case comes to a conclusion and she is found to not be defaming someone unnecessarily. But I mean, I mean, it really goes through the amount of vilification that she gets on behalf of the media as well. There's one scene in particular where she does a press conference, and I think it's her first press conference after her memoirs come out, and the media in Japan is sort of famously quite conservative, and before it you've seen her worrying with her lawyers and speaking and saying don't give them any reason to discredit you or anything. And she does an interview at the press conference with her top button undone, and then the next day all she's seeing on the news is loads of conservative media outlets taking it to task because she's dressing provocatively because her top button's undone at the press conference, and she's sat on the sofa just laughing at it, which I think almost sums up the sort of really extraordinary way that she has dealt with the situation and sort of finding the humor in it, because it's not the sort of bleak terror, like worthy and inverted commas film that I think it might sound like from the synopsis, but it is it's got that sort of not quite a playful edge, but I think she's such an engaging screen presence, and she's willing to sort of investigate at every opportunity sort of ways that she can make it sort of slightly brighter or try and keep herself above water, really. Yeah, I think it's just a really great film.
And what's it called?
Black Box Diaries.
And it's based on her book, The Black Box.
Just Black Box,
yes.
Yeah, from 2017, which I haven't read, but I would very much like to.
Sounds good.
And Ryan, so your film recommendation?
Well, because I'm relentlessly behind the times, I recently watched The Substance, which actually came out in cinemas, I think, in late September. So I'm going to talk about that anyway. So because of it, it's great. We gave it 5 stars on the site. I don't think that's too far off. It's the story of Demi Moore's fitness instructor superstar fitness instructor in an indeterminate sort of period in Los Angeles. It's sort of the present because people have mobile phones. There's something very 1980s about it as well. For one, she reads a newspaper, but she celebrates her 50th birthday, and she finds out that she's essentially being retired from her show because her slimy boss, played by Dennis Quaid, has decided that they need to get literally a younger model in to be the new fitness instructor, aerobics instructor. And so she sees an advert for something called the Substance, which is this sort of glowing green goo, which looks uncannily like the goo out of Reanimator, actually. It's supposed to create a new you birth a new you out of your spine. So she does, and she births Margaret Qualley. She's the sort of younger version of herself who goes out and spends 7 days being the new fitness instructor on TV, the sort of younger, hotter version of herself. And I won't say anything more about the plot than that. That's sort of, you can glean that from the trailers. But it's just a brilliant sort of fire hose of female rage and frustration, all wrapped up in, people have said it's Cronenbergian, and it is. You can see the Cronenberg in it. But it's also, there's bits of sort of David Lynch, Stanley Kubrick. And like I say, she said, interestingly, the director, Carolee Fergia, I think that's how you pronounce it, has said in interviews that she hasn't seen a film called Society, which is by Brian Usner, who produced Reanimator. But there are some fascinating parallels between this and Society. They're both kind of satires about one thing or another, and both have spectacularly grotesque body horror moments in them, especially in the third act. And the other reason I wanted to bring up The Substance is because it has some of the best sort of practical in-camera makeup effects that I've seen this year. And it's interesting because this year has also had Alien Romulus, which was really committed to in-camera effects to the point where they brought in loads of the people that worked on Aliens, Legacy Effects, and even Phil Tippett and all that sort of generation of makeup artists and animators and things like that. So it's just sort of fascinating to that we've had films like that this year. We've had so much good horror with practical effects in it. The other thing I say about The Substance is it needed a clinic. The big difference between this and something by David Cronenberg is that David Cronenberg would have had a creepy clinic. In this, she gets a syringe. She can't get. It's really cool, actually. She gets this cool kind of box. It's like a set that has all the instructions in it. It's almost like an Apple product. It comes out in layers, and you get syringes, and it's got like very simple instructions in very stripped back cards, simply designed cards. But it asks an awful lot of the amateur. Like an amateur surgeon, like, you must inject this into your spine, you'll collapse on your bathroom floor, and then you must feed yourself with this goo by this date, and then take this in spinal fluid and inject it at this time. So that's my only real beef with this film, is that it needed a creepy clinic. And also, I don't think that Demi Moore's bathroom would look like that.
It's a very large bathroom.
It's unfeasibly large. It's utterly starless. It's completely geometrical. Like they just made a set and put some tiles on it. And it's got a real like cheap end Wicks toilet in the corner. Also,
we all know Demi Moore's toilet is made.
We generally do. Margaret Qualley as well also does some extraordinary DIY in this film. Like she literally knocks a wall down, creates this incredible false doorway with hinges, and it closes perfect, like seamlessly.
Is it as good as Chris Pratt just for no reason building a wooden house in the Jurassic World films?
Did you do that in the Jurassic World?
I think it was, wasn't it?
I thought he just did that. He just did that with his hands.
He was miming.
No,
What, you're trying to say he didn't actually build it?
In the first one, he's living in a Airstream trailer or whatever, isn't he? While he's putting a roof on his
Yeah,
house.
He's an action man
being
figure.
Earth,
Are we
basically.
talking that level? That's what I want to know. I'm not going to watch The Substance unless the DIY is as good as it was in the Jurassic World trilogy.
I think it's more impressive.
It's
Oh,
some
right,
of the
I mean-
most shockingly good DIY you've ever seen.
Did they buy their equipment from the DIY store Denzel Washington worked in The Equalizer?
We can only hope.
Yes.
Are there nail guns involved?
They're
then?
nail guns, yeah.
So is it? Do you think the practical effects thing is now becoming like a badge of honor then, or is this? Would this have been done with computer graphics 3 years ago, but now it's like we're going to build a model for this?
The antithesis of this is what happened with the Thing remake from 2011, where I think that was legacy effects actually, where the Matthias Heiningen Jr. wasn't it the director of that? Yep. He shot the whole film with practical effects, and the studio looked at it and said, "People aren't going to pay to see this." So they overlaid all this gorgeous like latex and animatronic stuff that they spent hours making with this kind of CGI stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you can't be too, I don't want to be too mean to, digital VFX artists and stuff, because they do some great stuff, but it's not as good as, when you look at some of because there'll never be a reissue of that 2011 film with the original effects on. They just don't have all the footage. But when you see some of the behind the scenes stuff that I think Legacy put out, it looks amazing. I think there is like a generation of filmmakers that are looking back at those films and saying, no, I want to have it in camera. So I think Fede Alvarez said, I don't want to be one of those directors where some guy on a computer does all the fun stuff 100 miles away. I want to do the fun stuff myself,
Right.
which I think is great.
I know my daughter came back and said that the last 30 minutes of this were like nothing she'd ever seen before, and she said it was a very intense experience. And so if it passed the millennial test or whatever you want to call it now, in terms of practical effects.
I'd love to be able to birth an 18-year-old version of myself and see this film as an 18-year-old to see what they would make of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Well, I've got some medical equipment here.
Yeah, you've got some green goo I can inject.
I will just inject that direct into your spine, and let's see if another you pops out.
It's just a good piece of filmmaking as well. There's a great opening scene where it's just an overhead shot of a Hollywood star, of Demi Moore's character's Hollywood star, and it weathers over time. You see it crack and fade, and it's just great. That's fantastic. That tells you a character's backstory with no words and no like, I'm 50 this year. I'm really beginning to feel my age, or anything like that. It's so simple. It seems obvious, but it's just great.
Anybody else need to chime in on this, on The Substance?
You were saying how much you like The Substance.
Yes, I did. Thank you, Simon. I did like The Substance very much. I think I do it again. I think it's one of those films that I think really wouldn't exist without because there is such a practical edge to everything, and it's not just the kind of Margaret Qualley being birthed from a spine stuff. It's all of there's so much about food in the film in a really sort of unsettling way as well. I mean, you mentioned that Dennis Quaid was a slimy boss, and he's literally in the first scene that he's in. I've never seen someone eat shrimp in a less aesthetically pleasing way. It's
Who is the person you've who's eaten shrimp in the most aesthetically pleasing way? Give us a yardstick. Who's your favourite shrimp eater?
I was going to say, I think someone prepares shrimp in Migration, which is the animated duck film.
The Illumination movie.
Yeah, that came out. Was it earlier this year? I think it was earlier this year.
Was it Forrest Gump where they managed to get a national chain of shrimp restaurants off the back of the film?
Yeah.
That's right.
Shrimp.
So The Substance isn't going to do that. There's not a restaurant chain coming out of it.
No, I think if any restaurant chain was associated with The Substance, they'd have gone out of business by now. But
Ray Liotta, wasn't it?
Pardon?
Ray Liotta was going to play the Dennis Quaid character.
Yes,
which would have been incredible. Not that Dennis Quaid is bad, but I can absolutely picture Ray Liotta in in that role because he's just he's a naturally sinister human being, or was, God rest him.
God, do you remember was it all Unlawful Entry in the
Yes.
90s? No character development or anything needed. Be scared of him. Okay, I'm on board.
Well, it was so effective. What was the beer advert? They got him basically playing the same character in a beer commercial, just not the drink the beer or you'll be
he should have been
sorry.
in Wolves. Wolves. That's what he.
Yeah, unfortunately, he died.
Tragic, genuinely tragic.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, incredible.
That's lifted the tone.
Right. So moving on then, shall we get into some stories from the magazine this month and the website, of course. So with issue 52 of Film Stories on its way, issue 51 already out in the world. Simon, what are you going to pick?
Well, it's just a general ongoing thing with regards Netflix boss Ted Sarandos and his relationship with the cinema screen. And I'm loath to say I have some degree of sympathy with him, because every time you think he's on the verge of like making a good point, he tends to say something that makes you just think he just doesn't like films at all. But I mean, the story spiked up of Daniel Craig was alleged to have lost his shit with him over the second Knives Out film not getting a cinema release or a full cinema release. And at the point we're recording now, the story is that Greta Gerwig might be getting her wish, that her 2 Narnia films she's contracted to make for Netflix are going to end up in a cinema and get an IMAX release. I gather. I think that was the story that was doing the rounds today. The thing is, what I keep pondering is this just isn't a surprise anymore, is it? In the same way that you go into making a film with Warner Brothers and it's no longer a surprise if it deletes the film and doesn't bother to release it, that it sort of set a precedent, really, that Netflix's priority is not cinema. It is not a company to me that loves cinema. Made some really good stuff, but the whole thing coming out now, I don't believe a filmmaker can go into a negotiation with Netflix, certainly in 2024, and be surprised when Netflix does not want to release the film in a cinema. Sarandos keeps coming out with these arguments. We're a subscription business. That's not our model. This is what we want to do. And the thing is, fundamentally, he's right, isn't he? I mean, that is what they want to do. And if you don't want that, take your film somewhere else. And the example, the outlier was there years ago. Crazy Rich Asians, 2018, was the first big hit movie where they turned, to my memory anyway, where they turned the Netflix dollars down. They could have made themselves a lot more money, but they were we really want a cinema release, so we'll sacrifice 50 million or whatever it was and go with Warner Brothers. Put that against, what was that Christmassy movie that Ryan Reynolds, the musical one that came out on, was it on Apple? Spirited, which is a perfectly decent film. If that had been in cinemas, that would have been like on regular rotation for years, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. But the story around the time of that was all the stars of it took an increased salary, 35 million each, because they weren't getting the back end of the cinema release. So I think by now the rules of the game are fairly well established. You know, if you want the money and you don't want the cinema release, go to Netflix, go to the streamer or something like that. But I think the point now is, if you're negotiating for your film and you want it in a cinema, I just don't think you can't know the lay of the land anymore. Not by this point.
Isn't Netflix's relationship with cinema similar to Uber's relationship with independent taxi drivers?
Yeah,
they benefit from taxi firms collapsing, and everybody uses Uber.
The sole purpose of Netflix as a business is to
keep people at home.
Is to kill cinema. Is to keep people at home and look at what they did.
It is the only streamer, isn't it? It is the only streamer with that ethos as well. Because Amazon has other things that Amazon will try and sell you other stuff. Warner Brothers has a streaming service and is happy to, happy to put things in a cinema. Netflix's only way in an ideal world that you will watch a film is at home or on a phone, on a train or something like that.
If you look at what they did to DVD rental, it's like that is the canary. That is their business model. We will kill an entire industry in order to maximize our profits.
Which ironically is what Blockbuster had done to independent video stores before.
Yeah,
you know, my sympathy for Blockbuster. I mean, but you talk about sliding doors moments in the world. They could have bought Netflix and they told them to get lost.
But even then, someone else would have eventually happened upon this.
But Sarandos has, as I understand it, from his childhood, like no culture of attending the cinema.
No, just leave it there. No culture.
In fact, from what I've read about him, I understand his family. His dad hated the cinema. He never attended the cinema. He never went to the cinema when he was a kid. Watched all his movies at home on TV, and therefore has no appreciation for cinema. That is literally the core of his appreciation of movies, is watching them on television at home, and like, why does anybody need the cinema?
He's doing the right job then, to be fair.
Well, yeah. I mean, but
you can't argue with that.
If you get into bed with Netflix to make a film, their business model is nobody needs to go to the cinema anymore. And it's like you and if you don't know, well, you should. And people do, but they will take the money.
I will say, in sort of in Greta Gerwig's defense, I suppose, for Netflix, that she signed the Netflix deal for the Narnia films before Barbie came out, and that was when
I'm not attacking her. I mean,
no, not at all. But I think I think it'll be really telling what happens with the Narnia films, because this does seem like the fact that there have been talks between Netflix and IMAX allegedly, about potentially releasing it, and that's IMAX. That's proper cinema. That's not just a cursory Glass Onion. We'll stick it in cinemas for a week. It'll make a ridiculous per screen average, and then it'll disappear forever. That's like a proper. Yeah, I mean, that's like a proper. They'll make money out of that, and if a Netflix film makes money at the cinema, they spent so many years attracting every kind of auteur and big directing name. They got Scorsese, they've got Fincher. They've spent so long tying all these directors up in exclusive contracts and things, and then I think they're all coming to realize we don't quite have the economic power to persuade them to put things into the cinema anymore. And now Greta Gerwig's coming along, and she might just be, because she made the highest grossing film of last year, and sort of her stars never been higher.
Also, the most popular Netflix film of all time is Red Notice, with Dwayne Johnson and Gal Gadot, and that was a film that was originally a Universal theatrical release that Universal just didn't think it was worth the money.
Isn't it the case, still the case, that if a streamer like Netflix makes a film, they want it to be in awards contention, it has to have some sort of theatrical
yes,
yeah, it does, which is why you're seeing
Blonde got a limited release and stuff like that. So maybe they're starting to think along those lines for Narnia.
I mean, Knives Out 3 is supposed to be next summer, isn't it?
Well, they reckon they left 400 million on the table
with Glass Onion.
On Glass Onion. Like a conservative estimate is like Netflix are willing to leave $400 million of cinema receipts on the table in order to pursue their wish to destroy cinemas. And
I don't think it says that in its annual report per se.
No.
I think it's more in order to maximise subscriber revenue or something like that, isn't it?
But here we go. It's like, what do you, it's like, there's no viable way for Netflix to square the circle of, because the thing is as well, Netflix has to have a hard line on this, that if you're not in awards contention, you don't get a cinema release, because otherwise they're going to get leveraged.
Or if you're not Daniel Craig in a bad mood.
You're going to get leveraged by every filmmaker going forward that they want cinema releases, and that doesn't suit their business model.
And the flip side, and the ultimate result of that as well is in 30 years' time, were we to be doing this show and someone had talked about a Netflix film, I couldn't just walk over to the shelf and just pick a disc off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. That's cheered me up. Over to you.
Who wants to go next? Ryan, news story?
Go on, Ed. Mine's quite a brief one anyway. Mine is my ongoing bewilderment at Marvel's Blade reboot, which it still doesn't have a director, having had 2 directors drop out in recent years. It was originally, I think it was announced in 2018. It has an actor still attached, Mahershala Ali. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Mahershala Ali.
And it looked like it was all full steam ahead with the script, at least, because it had Eric Pearson, who's written the new Fantastic Four again, so he's written another reboot for Marvel. But the latest word is that they've that Marvel's said the script doesn't pass muster, and so we're starting again from scratch again. And we've had conversations about this behind the scenes, like this is about a vampire killer. It's not rocket science. It shouldn't be this hard to crack the script on something like this. I think I've seen somebody say, "Well, it's John Wick. Just have John Wick, but with vampires. Just put teeth in a John Wick film." Or I think James, you said, just do a remake of The Raid with vampires.
Yeah.
Although that was kind of dread. Was very much like The Raid as well. Yeah, I mean, like it's a really simple concept. It's make just a really simple action film, and for whatever reason, it just seems to refuse to happen. This film, I find it fascinating.
Are Marvel in the Lucasfilm zone now, where they're just second guessing themselves to such an extent that they now are sort of paralysed? Do you think, or is this being driven by the star and his wish to make something that's Black Pantherish in its impact or whatever?
I honestly don't know.
Who knows?
I'm just totally baffled by the whole situation.
How much did they throw at Ant-Man 3? I mean, that's where the Marvel
thing. 388 million, wasn't it?
Yep. That's what this T-shirt cost.
Who knows? Who knows where that money went?
I mean, I mean, for my money, the script needs to be about 2 pages long, doesn't it? You just say, "Hello, I'm Blade," and then you just get the stunt coordinator to design the rest of it, and then you just let them leave.
Why don't they just dump some money on Guillermo del Toro's desk again? He managed to crack a Blade movie. Blade 2 is fabulous.
He could do another stop motion one like Pinocchio.
That would be great. He's in post production on Frankenstein now, isn't he? Just like that. That was a year-long shoot he's done on that. He probably likes some light relief. There we go. We've solved that.
go see Guillermo.
Yeah, good. Yeah, Guillermo del Toro or Greta Gerwig with the cinema release. That's who I give that to.
Okay, James, do you want to weigh in with your news story?
Yeah, I'll weigh in with a news story. I'm going to plug the magazine.
Steady on.
I'm
so sorry. I didn't get the memo.
Shameless magazine plugging. So issue 52 is out of the Film Stories magazine. It's
by the time this is edited.
By the time this is edited, well, the time this is live and copy and paste into YouTube. Do I need to do the cover stuff? I'll do the cover stuff.
No.
It's the Ridley Scott issue. It's the Ridley Scott issue. There's Ridley Scott in it, but I'm not going to talk about Ridley Scott. I'm going to talk about community cinema. So I spoke to Jack Shell, who's the CEO of Cinema for All, who do lots of lovely work with film societies. I also spoke to a bunch of heads of various film societies in the UK. Basically, I guess the prerequisite for being featured in the article is, do you have some kind of club where people come and watch a film? And are you run by volunteers? And so there's loads of lovely community cinemas and film societies in it. One of them, one story in particular that I really enjoyed, which I spoke to Carol, who's the chair of the Manchester and Salford Film Society. And their president, who is also, I think, the vice president of Cinema for All, she's involved in some way. She first went to a meeting of the Manchester and Salford Film Society in 1939, and she's still going.
They just started writing Blade at that point.
They just started writing Blade. That was before he was a vampire. That was just before he got bitten. So she's been going to the same Cinema Society for 85 years. She's had every job under the sun, from like secretary to chair to president to projectionist, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, she's 102 years old now, but you know, every month, every week, more or less, she's been going to the same Cinema Society, watching films, sharing sort of her love of cinema with other people, and I just thought that was lovely.
It is a really, really lovely feature.
Yeah,
it made me very happy and warm inside. But that's not the only film society. There's also the Edinburgh Film Guild, who are a year older than the Manchester and Salford Film Society. There's a bit of a rivalry there over which one is older, but it is. As far as I can tell, it is the Edinburgh Film Guild. There's the Thamesmead.
Don't step into the middle of that argument.
I don't,
it's like the fight in Anchorman. Someone will turn up with a trident in the car park.
This is what I hear they do on a regular basis. But there's also the Thamesmead Travelling Cinema, which is a 25-seater cinema built out of vinyl discs that goes around Thamesmead showing people films. There's the Spectrum Film Club in East Derbyshire, where it's just, there's plenty of film clubs like this where it's just a film club for people who are maybe on the autistic spectrum or have special viewing needs, and showing them and giving them a love of cinema. And it's all very lovely stuff. It's all very wholesome. And it made me very happy to write. And it's available in Film Stories issue 52. The Ridley Scott issue, which is in all good newsagents.
It's not though.
And
it's on a technicality. We can't afford to put it in that many newsagents.
It's in some good newsagents.
Well, newsagents.
If they're not stocking Film Stories issue 52, send them a stern letter.
How about we go to store.filmstories.co.uk?
Yes, definitely available there.
They're my favourite newsagent.
I love the story in the feature about that it's now Manchester and Salford Film Club because they tried to show a banned movie and basically caused a furore in the 40s at some
Spoilers.
point.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Yes. They tried to show I think it was Storm Over Asia, the Russian film, and they marketed it as the film Salford must not see on all the posters. It sounds so sort of
that's Deadpool and Wolverine, surely.
Yeah. Oh, it's just
the film no one should see.
It's great. It's just crying out for someone to make a mini series or a film about that. It'd be great.
Well, they big up a bunch of amateurs quite a lot.
They do.
Not the Burt Reynolds one.
No, not the Burt Reynolds one. What? Not the Burt Reynolds one.
Documentary.
The documentary that Simon very much enjoyed.
Well,
and we wrote about last year.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it on the podcast last year. Last time we did one of these.
That film.
Yes,
it's a lovely film.
That's a good recommendation. Yeah. Well, for my news story as well, I'm going back in time because I wanted to talking about physical media. The Studio Canal re-release of The Third Man, which is featured in our physical media section, and Tim Murray has done an excellent interview with a lady called Angela Allen, who was actually one of the script supervisors on The Third Man when it shot in like 1947 over in Prague, and basically talking about her role on the film all the way back then. We've got some excellent archive pictures that were provided for the feature of her sitting in like a murderer's row of filmmakers, including sort of the composer and sitting in a screening. It's just a great little article, great little interview, for something that's like for a great film that is celebrating its 75th anniversary, and Studio Canal, bless them, are putting it out in a 4K restoration and Blu-ray, which is an admirable thing in these times, I think, and worth talking about. And the physical media section of the magazine at the back for issue 52 is quite the thing, and I enjoy reading it every time I have to.
Personally endorsed by Ted Sarandos.
Yes, he loves it.
So it's
he
not.
Loves it.
It's obviously not. Don't sue me.
Stuff.
Don't sue me, Ted. You're a richer man than me, and no doubt you have a much nicer house.
But yeah, the section that Tim Murray's put together at the back is a great read. I think it's 8 pages of physical media that we cover, including some reviews and stuff as well. That's been my favourite thing. That was my favourite thing to set out for the magazine this month. In a magazine that's actually like got loads of good stuff in it, including Ryan's extensive interview with Ridley Scott at the start of the at the top of the magazine and on the front.
Your old mate there, Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't scary.
Yeah, but that's several times you've interviewed him. He's never in a bad mood with you. By reputation, you would perceive him to be a relatively grumpy and quite intolerant man, but you've never found him that way.
I think it's because I walk in, trip over stuff, and seem like such a country bumpkin that he's probably just quite beguiled by the sight of this scruffy guy who means him no harm. Yeah.
Means
Just happy to be there. It's like, oh, bless him. I'll answer your questions. Now be on your way, my son.
Pat you on the back, yeah. Take a lollipop on your way.
I mean, he's pretty amazing though, considering he's now 2 films in the future already, or whatever.
And the rest, I'd
3.
imagine.
3.
He wants to make a Gladiator 3. He reckons he's got it storyboarded out. He's doing Bee Gees, and another science fiction film that he was very cagey about. So he's
Fortress 3 with
Absolutely.
Christopher Lambert. Is he doing that?
I wouldn't put money on it.
Oh, okay. I'm out.
Okay, right. To wind this up, then let's quickly do the parish notices. Simon, you're going to tell us what's coming out in the near future for Film Stories.
We have 2 magazines going on sale. They're just on sale now. We have the aforementioned Film Stories issue 52, the UK's biggest, who knows, might be the world's, don't hold me to it, film magazine, 168 pages. It's on nice paper as well, and it smells quite nice. I think we're the nicest smelling film magazine in the world. I think we should put that on the front cover. Yeah. 168 pages. I mean, we're really proud of it, aren't we? It's just like it's so hard work to do a print film magazine, and it's so against the grain, and also to do one of that size. It's heavily inspired by like the film magazines of the 90s and the 2000s that just used to land with a real thump. And so, we're working on the next one already. We've got another one coming out before Christmas. Can't tell you too much about that yet. And then we've got Film Junior, which is also out, which is, I've not found another one in the world. I think it's the world's only regular print film magazine for under 15s. And it's Paddington on the front of this one, which makes James very, very, very happy. Look at him. Nothing makes him happier than Paddington in a nice double bill with the substance.
We will almost certainly be talking about Paddington next month, I would guess.
If James can break into a screening. Look at him.
Yes.
Look at him.
Well, if you can drag me out of the screen, I'll be watching it non-stop for the entire duration it's in cinemas.
Okay.
I think my local picture house will be doing at least 4 screenings a day. I'll be in all of them.
Okay. Enjoy. I look forward to your arrest.
Your podcast, the regular Film Stories podcast, will
still
come
going
out every Monday.
Over 400 episodes of that. Lots of specials coming up as well. But every time I arrange,
can you tell us?
No, because every time I arrange a special interview, I lost 2 last week through illness. One of them, I was due to interview a director, and they lost their voice. So it's like, you can't really get round that with a podcast. They weren't just
Norman Collery.
It's like a Buster Keaton movie or something like that. Yeah, they just decided to do it through mime. So I'm gonna release a 1-hour silent track to talk about an unnamed film that obviously I can. No, I mean I've got another interview that's due to start after this within minutes ish, but that was delayed from last week as well. So who knows? But I do have coming up towards the end of November the producers of Gladiator 2, who tell me a very, very odd story about 1999's Stuart Little.
There you go. Right, you can get regular film news from all of the people that you see, apart from me, I don't really do anything. All of the people that you see on screen, you can get regular film news and features from them at filmstories.co.uk. You can buy the magazine at store.filmstories.co.uk. You can find us on Twitter and Blue Sky at Film Stories, Instagram and Threads at Film Stories Magazine UK, and at Facebook at Film Stories Online. Thank you very much, everybody, for doing this first episode.
Thank you, John.
I'm going off to see if Horizon's out yet.
Yeah, well, it may be.
And I'm going to get in the queue for Paddington 3.
This has took long enough, so it may well be finished by now. All 12 hours of it.
12.
12. All 8 hours of
12.
Of Costner.
Thanks, John.
8 hours. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.